Let's revisit moments when Hear the Word was celebrating its 10th anniversary.
We're not only building buildings, but we're involved in changing people's lives.
Well, I grew up as a very, probably what I would say an average middle-class American. I was the oldest of 8, and we were a very devout Roman Catholic family, very religious. Of course, in a large Catholic family, the oldest son, which I was, is earmarked to become the Catholic priest. By the time I was 18 years old, I was pretty disillusioned with religion. My life was miserable. I was drinking myself quite heavily into a hole.
I was born in Pennsylvania, and I was born into an abusive home where my dad was an alcoholic. My dad wanted boys, but he got 2 girls. And then they divorced, and he abandoned us, and he didn't want to have much to do with us anymore, so my mom remarried. After my mom remarried, we moved to a tiny little town, Great Bend, Kansas, which was in the middle of nowhere.
My dad invited me to a Bible study at a Catholic rectory at the church, and we're down in the basement, and there's a Protestant guy speaking. Really, for the first time ever, I heard the gospel. I heard the gospel plainly and clearly, and I heard the message, you must be born again. I gave my life to Christ, and upon so doing, heard what I would have then said was an audible voice. Today, knowing the Holy Spirit better, I would say it was the voice of the Holy Spirit speaking within me. He said, you will serve me in Rhodesia. Now, I always tease people, I say being an American and not so good in geography, I said I thought that was on the East Coast somewhere.
My passion was music, and all I wanted to do was to sing and to be involved in musical productions. I was invited to come and sing for a Jesus rally. And when I got there and sang, I saw this beautiful Miss America who was tall, beautiful. She played the piano. She had everything any American girl could want. And she said, but you know, I needed Jesus. And I looked at her and I thought, with my background, if you need Jesus, I need Jesus.
I became very on fire for Jesus. Immediately I was on the streets of Denver, Colorado, working with street people and homeless and prostitutes and drug addicts. And I was working in the high school, and we had a Bible study, and we had a revival in our high school, and over 250 of the young people started coming to my parents' home, and it was quite an incredible time for people to come to a knowledge of Jesus. There was a move of God, a move of the Holy Spirit. All the time I'm wrestling with this word that I'll serve him in Rhodesia. On the 28th of December, 1978, I was driving home and got caught in a blizzard. I had my own home, I had my own car, I had my own, I had a girlfriend, but I got stuck at my parents' house in this blizzard, and I said, I'll spend the night there. And I remember locking myself in the guest bedroom and getting on the floor and telling the Lord, I said, if I don't hear from you by January 1st, here's what I'm going to do. I will not go to Africa. I'm going to marry this little girl. I'm going to do my dad's business. I'll support missions, and I'll always love you, and I'll always go to church, but I'm not going to go to Africa. And that night, it was very peculiar because I knelt down on the floor to pray, and I fell asleep in my prayer position. And about some early hour of the morning, my dad's pounding on the door because I'd locked it. And he's upset with me. He says, Dad, he says, son, you can't have your friends calling all these ungodly hours of the day, and come and get this phone call. And I finally get up and I get to the phone, and on the other end of the line is a guy I traveled the world with. He was a missionary son, and he'd gone to Rhodesia. And he says, listen, we were just praying, and we felt like God said that you're supposed to come to Rhodesia. And man, I'll tell you what, something jumped in my spirit. I said, I'm coming. I hung up the phone. I told my parents that morning, I said, I'm going to be going to Rhodesia. And so Dad and I talked. I resigned my position from the business. I sold my house. I gave my car away, gave my furniture away. And by the time I finished with everything, I had a suitcase, a backpack, a guitar, and about $750 in my pocket and a round-trip airfare. And I took off for Rhodesia. Rhodesia in 1979 was a hot spot, a point of real conflict on the African continent. It was a war-torn country. I saw that division. I saw adamant Rhodesian front guys who said, no, Rhodesia will never die, not in 1,000 years. These are guys that are going to fight to the bitter end. And then on the other side, you have these freedom fighters that no, we want to be liberated, and the liberation war, and all, and they're both adamant, but both are destined for hell without Jesus Christ. So that gave me a very clear understanding that I'm not here to take sides. I'm here to preach the gospel. I'm here to give men hope, regardless of what their political persuasion is. Then I began to teach at the Zioja Bible College, the African Bible College, and I worked with a guy, and I got a motorbike. I got a little C-Series Yamaha motorcycle. And me and another friend, another missionary, would ride out to the Bible school, and if they hung a red flag on the gate, we knew that we had to turn back because the boys, the freedom fighters, were there. So we would risk our lives to go and actually preach at this Bible school, and it was quite interesting.
That we may be able to comfort others in any of their troubles with the same comfort God comforts us. Has Jesus changed your lives? Amen.
I felt a pull to go speak to these farmers, and I ended up going to different farming districts. Started in Karoi, and then I'd do something in Chinoy, and then I'd come back and I'd do something in Macheki and Virginia and Headlands, and then doors opened for me to go to Cheredi, and then I'd go all the way to Kariba. And so this side of the country was pretty much where I did most of my ministry. And I led over 1,000 white farmers to the Lord.
I think there was a lot of fatigue in the country from the war, and here came a man of God with a refreshing message on let's build the kingdom rather than be taken down by the circumstances that we found ourselves in at the time.
He used to come out to Karoi, that's where we were farming, and they used to have a Wednesday, I think it was a Wednesday afternoon gathering at the club. And it started off small, but very, very soon it started to grow. People in the area saw that there was a need for a stronger spiritual base in their lives. There were some dramatic salvations that took place.
So here I am, I'm 25 years old, and I'm in a country that is in a war, and my money's running out. I get to the point where I'm having to pay rent, I'm having to travel, and I have no money left. In fact, to be honest with you, I'm 2 months behind in my rent. I'm praying, I'm saying, God, I don't know how I'm going to stay here. So I'm contemplating, well, God, you called me, but you got to take care of me. And I feel like the Holy Spirit said to me, you need to trust me with your finances. So you have to understand that I was writing soppy letters to people, missionary letters. Oh, and any way I could to have you support me. And I felt like God said, stop that. He says, I'm going to do something new with you. I will support you, but I will be your source. And so I made a vow. I said, God, I will never write another letter asking for that kind of support. I think it was like the 28th or 29th day. And I'm doing a Bible study in my home. I was really disappointed, really discouraged. Only 8 people had showed up that night, and I would play the guitar and lead a couple of songs, and then I'd teach the Bible study, and You know, I clean up the teacups and I send everybody away, and I came in, and as I was putting my guitar away, the place where you hold the plectrums, where you hold the picks, there was something bulging out there. So I pulled this envelope out, and in that envelope was 1,200 Rhodesian dollars. Now that's 2,500 US dollars. That's a lot of money for a missionary. That more than covered all my bills. That's more than I ever came to Africa with. But it broke something. And from that day onward, I never did without. God supplied my needs, and I learned to trust Him. I'll never forget, I was in Koroi one time, and I'm out on the Miami road, and there's two ways to go. You get to a junction in the road, and I'm going to this farmer's house, and I always go left because it's the shortest route. But this particular time, I'm driving, and I take the left turn, and just before I take the left turn, I hear what I think is, it sounds like an audible voice, but I know it to be the voice of the Holy Spirit. It says, "Turn right, go right." And it's like I'm looking in the car, I'm thinking, who said that? Go right. Anyway, I go left, and then go right. So I stop the car, and I back up, and I go right. For no common, it doesn't make sense. Anyway, I finally get to the guy's house, 21 Ks. It took me about 35, 40 minutes to get there. And as I sit on his front porch to have tea, boom, we hear this explosion. So a few minutes later, about 15 minutes later, one of his laborers comes and tells us, "Oh, the tractor came over the bridge and hit a landmine." Well, that would have been the bridge I would have come over had I gone left and instead of going right. And so you think of those things and you think, oh man, you know, God is protecting us if we'll listen to His voice. There came a point in time when we shifted from Rhodesia to Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, and all of the freedom fighters went into what were called keeps. And I'll never forget, as they were going into those keeps, I felt a call to preach the gospel to them. And so we did what was called Operation Snowstorm. We'd fly over these keeps, and we would fly over the countryside there when they were coming in, and we were dropping tracts talking about Jesus, and you need to accept Christ. And we thought, well, this would be a great thing. On one occasion, I was in the back of the plane, and the guy who was piloting, I'm throwing things out the back of the plane, and by the box load, but they're floating down, and we get shot at. Well, this guy was a very good pilot, and he flips the plane on its side, goes down into a road, and gets us out of there. And it really scared me. These are exciting times. and here you are, you're a young man, you're single, and so you're pushing the envelope a little bit, doing things that, you know, I look back on now, I probably wouldn't do as a married man. In 1981, I was invited back to Christ for the Nations to speak at a conference there in June. And so I headed back, very painful time for me because I had worked with a local church here, and I didn't know that I posed a threat, but I did. And so I was made a prohibitive immigrant by the pastor of that church. On the way to the airport, this guy turned to me and he said, "Oh, by the way, you'll never come back to this country. I'm making you a prohibitive immigrant."
After I gave my life to the Lord, I wanted to serve Him, and my family was really upset that I was a Christian now, that I got born again, and I was known as a Jesus freak. But fortunately, because my grandfather was an English professor, my mom had a value of education, and so she saw Oral Roberts University on television because he was now a televangelist, and he had a music program on TV, and she saw that and said, "Well, maybe we should send you there." Well, when I got to school, I realized I was going to major in music education, but then I saw the music group and I auditioned for that, and 2 years later I became a world action singer, traveled with Oral, traveled with Richard Roberts, did their television programs, got a great experience in performance and professional music.
That's right. I understand that you're a recent graduate of Oral Roberts University.
I graduated in May of '79 in music education.
And you'll be wearing the Miss Tulsa crown for a few more months, won't you?
Right,
Okay, but you've already sort of embarked on a new career of singing concerts of a sort, haven't you?
Well, as Miss Tulsa this year, I went into several of the junior high and senior high and even grade schools doing concerts as Miss Tulsa. And it's been a real joy.
After I graduated from Oral Roberts University and I was actually working in a restaurant, singing and touring with Miss Tulsa, I realized I didn't know the Bible. I knew music, but not the Bible. And I loved the Lord, but I didn't know the Bible. So I went to Christ for the Nations Bible School. And while I was there, I met a missionary. And that missionary, after we dated for a season, he introduced me to another missionary who had just come in from Africa. This one was from Mexico. He introduced me to this missionary who came from Africa, and he said, "You're going to love this guy." Well, the guy heard me sing at a conference that night, and then took me and my Mexican missionary friend to dinner, and totally ignored me, and I thought, this guy's kind of weird.
Anyway, after the meeting, I met up with Larry, this guy, my friend, and we went out to dinner, and he says, "Oh, can I have my girlfriend come with me?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So we went to a hamburger joint, and this girl was the girl who had sang. She was amazing. And I thought, wow.
I'm beautiful with your love, because you see, you bring out the best in me.
Anyway, I wasn't interested in her, so Larry and I were catching up, and I was lamenting some of the things I'd been through and the pain I'd been through, and this fact that now I've been made this guy says I'm going to be a prohibitive immigrant. I can't go back to Africa. I don't know what to do. A couple of weeks later, you know, we meet up again, and he's with this girl, and he says, "Hey, listen, I've got to go back to Mexico. Would you take me to the airport?" And so we actually get in this girl's car, and we drive him back to the airport, and we drop him off, and so just before he gets ready to leave, he puts me in a very awkward position. He says, "Hey," he says, will you take care of her while I'm away?" I said, "Are you kidding me? She's your girlfriend. I'm not going to take care of her." He said, "Well, just see her. Just come and say hi to her or something." He said, "Take her to lunch or take her to dinner." I said, "Larry, look," I said, "this is your girlfriend. I don't want to take your girlfriend to dinner." Anyway, it was really awkward. And I said, "Oh, I'll do something." Anyway, so I took Bonnie and I took her out to dinner. And we start talking, and we find out that I'm speaking at a church in Dripping Springs, Texas. Well, she was invited to sing at that church. And so she says, "Well, hey, we could go together." That weekend was amazing. She sang, I preached. It was quite a powerful weekend. On the way home Sunday night, I asked her how she was doing with Larry, and she said, "Well, no, Larry and I broke up." I said, "Oh." But long story short, she and I phoned Larry, and I tell Larry, "Oh, by the way, since you broke up with her, she and I are going to get married." Now, this is 3 days after, I met her, really seriously.
And we got news that when Pastor Tom was back in America, that he had met this beauty queen and that he was going to get married. So we all sent him a message, and we said, "You don't forget that you're part of us now, and you've got to pay Lobola." Whether he did or whether he didn't, we don't know.
In 3 days we were engaged. In 3 months we were married. In 2 weeks we were on our way to Africa.
So it came to time for Bonnie and I to come back to Africa, and I'd never told her that I'd been made a prohibitive immigrant. I didn't know how to tell her that, and so I thought, well, let's go see. So the next Sunday we go back to this church where I'd been fellowshipping, and it was ice cubes. It was like, I knew I wasn't welcome there. So I thought, okay. So actually Bonnie and I said to her, "Listen, I don't think my ministry is going to be in this country. So I took Bonnie, and she and I then went to South Africa, and I had a huge following down there. I'd been teaching in Ray McCauley's Bible College at Rhema. I was really welcomed all over the country down there. I was in all the churches down there. I was with the Full Gospel Businessmen. And then with Bonnie, that was just an added boon. I mean, she could sing, and every conference they wanted Bonnie to sing. And so this became, I thought, well, this will be what we'll do.
Without Jesus, you just exist. There's no life outside of the life of God.
I drove up from Durban, and I went to Ray McCauley's church one night on a Wednesday night. And I said, let's just sneak in here. We snuck in the back of the church, and Ray sees us. And all of a sudden, he starts prophesying. He says, turn 180 degrees from the way you're going. And he says, fast for the next 3 days. He says, you'll see, God will appear to you like in an open vision, and he'll tell you what you're supposed to do. Well, 180 degrees from the direction we were going was, we were going to South Africa. God made it very, very clear that we're supposed to return to Rhodesia, that our ministry would be in the nation of Zimbabwe at that time, Zimbabwe. So we came back to the country here, and we drove in. Nobody knew we were coming. And the afternoon that we arrived, there were three people sitting on my front porch. And they said, God told us you were coming. I said, how did you know? They said, no, God told us. And you're going to start a church, and we're your first 3 members.